Alright, so let's talk about scenarios. I guess you could call it some sort of new game feature that has been introduced into The Sims 4. It is out now for everyone, completely free of charge. It was introduced in yesterday's free patch update, and there are 2 scenarios to start: making money and finding love after a breakup. Well, actually, as of today, November 3rd, a brand new scenario is available to play as well. Some simmers actually had access to it yesterday, I did not, but now it should be available for everyone. It is called Too Many Toddlers, and of course the whole point of this one is to basically overwhelm your sim with multiple toddlers that you need to make sure reach level 3 in at least 4 different skills. To be completely honest with you, I think that the scenario feature is pretty solid, but there are definitely some major improvements that I think should come sometime down the line to make this feature a lot better. The first thing that I'm going to mention is actually something that I've mentioned before multiple times in multiple videos. First, on my reaction stream to the Inside Maxis live stream, and then again in yesterday's video. I'm gonna mention it here again in case you did not watch any of those, but I also have some other points that I wanna talk about as well on how scenarios could be improved for the future. Firstly, it would mean a lot to me if scenarios weren't limited. And when I say that, I mean as in limited time. I'd love to see all of the scenarios that come to the game be permanent and last forever. I mentioned in yesterday's video that I don't like that there will be certain scenarios that you can only start certain times of the year. At the end of the day, this is a life simulation game, this is a sandbox game, so people are gonna wanna do whatever they want in it. That means if I wanna complete some sort of Christmas scenario or New Year's scenario in July if I wanted to, then I should definitely have that ability to do so. I've seen comments from several simmers specifically on my channel saying I can kinda understand the limited time aspect, thinking of it from another perspective, because maybe the whole point in them doing that is to get players in the game to do these things. Because if there is no limited time, then simmers are less likely to open their game and play these. Which actually makes a lot of sense. That could be the reason why they introduced this whole scenarios feature in the first place, but then if that's the case, that also has me thinking, if the sole purpose of scenarios is to just improve EA's numbers for players in the game or players coming back to the game more often, then was this really ever added for the players or for the sake of improving the game? When you think about it in that light, if, not saying this is true, this is just like, I guess, a theory among simmers, that if the whole scenarios feature is really just a gimmick in a way for EA to improve their player numbers or recurrent numbers, meaning that it just gets simmers back in the game more often, then maybe this was something that was pushed from EA on the Sims team. Maybe this isn't even the Sims team's idea, which if that is the case, it definitely rubs me the wrong way. Those kinds of gimmicks definitely would not be needed in the game if the focus was solely on improving the game and wanting to just make it better. More simmers would come back in more often and would be playing it more often, so there wouldn't be the need to do things like that, you know? I'm trying to say this in a way that like doesn't come off bad. Like, I feel like you guys get what I'm trying to say and you get my point. Like, I'm not trying to say all they care about is money and numbers, but when you have these kinds of things, it just makes it feel like that, you know? But also then at the same time, if we do get some of the improvements that I've talked about in this video, where maybe they add like gameplay triggers, or maybe they change it so that they aren't limited time anymore, then that could definitely completely prove that theory wrong, that it isn't about just improving their numbers for recurrent players and getting people back into the game more often, because that's definitely what this limited time thing feels like. The second thing that I want to bring up and talk about, and I have brought this up before as well, but I just want to elaborate on it more. I would love if scenarios are triggered in-game after certain interactions or sim life events. Having scenarios pop up or trigger in this way actually keeps the immersion in the simulation, at least for me. Imagine you're playing a sim, you have 2 sims that are together and the relationship has gone awry, and you know that things are going to end, you know they're going to break up and go separate ways, so you have one of the sims actually break it off with the other sim, and the second that you perform that interaction, the game could recognize that you've done that, and then you have a little pop-up that comes up in the corner or in the center of the screen saying, hey, we noticed that you just had a sim break up with another sim. Would you like to start the finding love after a breakup scenario? and just by doing that, it gives the game so much more immersion. I think something like that would be amazing because let's say you have two Sims break up, you meant to go and complete that scenario, but because it didn't trigger, it didn't pop up and it didn't remind you, it's possible you might have forgotten and you could have gone off to do something completely different, because with the way that these scenarios work now, what you have to do is you would have to save your game, you'd have to close and go to the main menu, you'd have to open the scenario, load with existing save, and then from that point, go from there. But I don't think you should have to close out and go to the main menu every time you want to start a scenario. I definitely think that there's nothing wrong with having that as an option, especially if you're creating a new household or a new save. But for saves that you're already playing, I think that these things should have triggers, or at least a way for you to trigger them yourself inside of the save file, inside of the household without going to the main menu, you know? I think by them doing this, it would definitely keep players in their games longer. It would also be cool if this in-game trigger, whether you perform a certain interaction or if certain sim life events are completed or toggled, could also be an option in the options menu. So if you don't want these things to be automatically triggered by things that you do in-game, you can turn that off if you wish. An on-off button would be perfect for something like this, because I know not everyone wants that, but for me, this is definitely something that's grabbed my interest. The next thing, scenarios could definitely be improved if we could edit them and make custom scenarios. Now, before I go any further into elaborating on exactly what I mean with this, I want to talk about a tweet from Kawaii Stacy, a custom content and mod creator. Kawaii Stacy has actually already created a custom scenario, guys. It's called High School Sweethearts and the themes are romance. All they've ever known were each other, and now one of them possibly wants to explore the options. Sims will start the scenario having recently broken up with each other, so the requirements: Sims must not be related to each other, two Sims who are young adult or older, and potential outcomes. A Sim decides to bring back the spark and get back together. A Sim decides to just be good friends. A Sim decides to sleep around with multiple partners, or a Sim decides to go on various dates with other people. So as you can see, mod creators have already jumped into the code of the game to be able to edit these things, change them around, and I guess give us custom scenarios. I wanted to bring that up because that is one way that we could get them, but of course, not everyone is gonna have access to that. Console players, I'm looking at you. Also, people on PC and Mac, even if you don't know how to install custom content or mods, or you don't like to play with them, an edit scenario feature from EA for everyone would definitely be a solution to that. Being able to customize the name, customize the icon, and even customize the description or requirements and potential outcomes. There could be drop-down menus. For example, in the making money scenario, I kind of don't like how it's 1,000,000 simoleons. Like, that's kind of a lot of money to achieve, especially if you don't plan on using cheats, you know? So it would be cool while you're editing this, before you've actually set up the scenario, you could go to a drop-down menu, or there could be like a blank text box and you can input the amount of money that you want to be the goal. So if you don't want 1,000,000, you can put 250,000 or 100,000 or 25,000, and then you can set that, and then the game is going to watch that and monitor and track that progress inside of the game. The drop-down menu could work very well with the potential outcomes section on the scenario page as well. For example, with the perfectly well-rounded scenario, the potential outcomes for that are: Sim completes an aspiration, has 5 friends, and is level 10 in 3 skills. It would be nice to customize all of those things, so you could specify a certain aspiration that you want to be completed. Instead of 5 friends, you could choose a different number or input your own, so you could say 2 or 3 friends. And instead of level 10 in 3 skills, you could say level 5 in 4 skills, or level 2 in 6 skills if you wanted to. Like, being able to customize those numbers gives us more flexibility, so we don't have to sit and rely on EA to create the perfect scenario that we want, because if we had some sort of editor, we would be able to do it ourselves. It would also be so cool if these scenarios, after you complete them, can be saved in your household and then shared, maybe on social media or on the gallery. For example, doing it with another friend, for example, you could share your stats to them so you can see, oh hey, they achieved this faster than I did, or their outcome was different from my outcome. Like, it would be so cool if after you could complete these scenarios, they would stay inside of your household in some sort of panel to where you can go back and you can look at them, kind of like the sentiments or the memories. But if I'm being honest with you, I do doubt that custom scenarios would ever come to The Sims 4, considering that customization in general just hasn't been too good with this game. I mean, look at the apartments. I had a phone conversation with my friend Rachel last night, and she brought up the whole apartments thing, like how apartments definitely aren't as customizable as they should be, you know, especially now that we're 4 games into the Sims franchise. So, you know, after thinking about that, I definitely don't think that custom scenarios would ever come to the game, but it is still something that I would love to see in the future. If you have any other ideas or any ways that you could see scenarios improve sometime in the future, definitely leave your ideas and speculation and discussion down in the comment section below. I really hope that we do see these improvements sometime down the line, but I am definitely keeping my hopes low. For too long, it just really feels like the game is being made the way the developers want it to be and not how the consumers or players want it. And at the end of the day, the Simmers, the consumers, are the ones that are paying for this game. So yes, the Sims team has been doing a better job of listening to the players and putting in requested features, but we still have a long way to go with that. I say this because there are still so many highly requested features, dozens of them to be honest, that players have been asking for over half a decade that still haven't come to the game. So that's why I say keep your hopes low, but I would love to see improvements in these areas. This video was brought to you by my supporters on Patreon. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you'd like to join my community over there, a link is below. Thank you for watching.